Hello, everyone. Hope everybody can hear us okay. Welcome to the Renku 2.0, soon to only be called Renku, launch webinar. We are super happy to have you here. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining. And yeah, Laura and I will talk to you today about the overall vision of Renku, which maybe not all of you are familiar with, and then also we'll dive into a demo and give some information to the existing Renku users about what is happening with the old Renku. Maybe next slide. First, I just wanted to really give a heartfelt thanks to the whole team that has made this possible. It's been a really, really exciting journey for the past 18 months or so. It's been a lot of hard work from the folks you see here, minus Lionel, who is missing. Actually, he was on vacation when we took this photo, but otherwise, almost everybody that's been involved in this effort is there. And yeah, just really, we're very proud of what the team has accomplished, and we hope that our users will also like what we have to share with them. So with that, I'll let Laura take over and dive into some of the overview, and then I will take over for the demo.
Yep. So hi, for those who I haven't met yet, I'm Laura, I'm the team's product manager. So as Rook started hinting at, this presentation is mostly going to be divided into 3 parts. We're going to do an introduction and tour of 2.0. We expect that there are some people on this call who are not familiar with Renku. So we're going to do a little bit of introduction from the ground up. We'll also be highlighting on that demo some of the new features that have come out in the last 2 releases or so. So there's also something for those of you who are very familiar with Renku. Second, we're going to be talking about what's next. So this is a webinar celebrating the launch of 2.0, but we are not finished here. So we're going to talk about what we have planned ahead for Renku. And then somewhat related to that, what is the future for what we're referring to now as Renku Legacy, the former version of Renku. Feel free at any time, if you have a question, you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom or the Q&A to ask a question. We'll also have lots of time at the end for questions as well. All right, so the overall, what is Renku all about? Our vision is that Renku is an open source platform that connects the ecosystem of data, code, and compute, and empowers researchers to build collaborative communities. So I want to dive into what I really mean there about collaboration. So if you think about a typical data science or research project, maybe you start with data that comes from a data repository that you take from another project and want to build off of. I'm probably combining that with some additional data sources. Maybe those are stored on some kind of institute file share or in an S3 bucket somewhere. You're going to need code, which you may host in a GitLab or on GitHub. And then for doing your work and doing your analysis, you may start on your laptop. And then as your work progresses, may switch to using more robust infrastructure like a remote VM, a remote machine, or HPC or something like that. So as you can see here, we have a really diverse collection of resources and infrastructures that all need to be brought together to make a single project work. And on one level, this just represents a lot of busy work, not the fun part of doing research and data science projects. But on another level, this makes it really hard to share a project and to collaborate when you're faced with really fundamental questions like, well, where is the data and do I have access to it? So we envision Renku as a connecting hub. That's a place where you can bring all of the pieces of a project together in one place in a structured form that is really, really easy to share with other people. This also makes it easier to discover work that's related to your own and still maintain the context of what that work was all about. For example, seeing a whole project that supports a data set that you want to build off of, and also tracing. So how the output of one project becomes the input of the next one, and be able to see those secondary downstream uses of data. So this is what Renku is all about, and this is what it looks like. So those different spheres of code, data, and compute come together in a Renku project in the form of data, code, and sessions. And I'm going to hand it over now to Rock to do a live walkthrough so you can see for yourself.
All right. Okay, so yeah, here we've got the landing page of Renku, and when I log in, I have a few options here. Oh, I'm already logged in. So when I log in, I drop into my to my dashboard, and here I've already got a couple sessions running that I'll get into later. But for now, I will actually walk you through what it looks like to create a project from scratch. So I can go up here, select a new project, and I'll give it a name. And for this project, we'll actually be doing some really basic analysis of some air quality data. And when I drop into this project, it's actually blank. There's nothing here. So I've got my a place where I can add my session, a place where I can add my data, a place where I can add my code. So I'll start by adding the data. And here, first of all, I have a few options. So the first option that we provide is that you actually can just link an existing data connector from within Renku. So if somebody has already created a data connector that you have access to, or maybe it's one of your own data connectors, you can just quickly copy paste it here, and I'll show that to you in a second how that works. We also have the means to actually import data by a DOI from Zenodo and Dataverse. These are the first two types of repositories that we are supporting. Or you can create a brand new data connector connected to something like an S3 bucket, or for those of you who have like a Polybox or a SwitchDrive account or some other web dev source, it's also possible to connect to an SFTP server, a Samba share, all kinds of options here. So you can really create one that suits your needs here. For right now, I'm going to actually look for a data connector for this air quality project. So I will go to search, and I will select here data connectors. And hopefully I can find the one that I want. Here it is. This is the one that we have created. And you can see here that there's some basic information about this data connector. It also tells me already the other projects that are using it. But for right now, all we care about here is this identifier. So we'll copy the identifier and then go back to my project and add this data connector. So now it's there for me, ready to go. I didn't have to care about the link, the server name, any of that, because somebody has already done that work for me. So in a research setting, this would be maybe some sort of a data manager or some other role in the group, for example, which we'll get to in a second. Now, I do want some code to run on this data, and I have a GitHub repository that I've put together for this purpose. And all I have to do here is copy the GitHub URL, drop it in here, and the code is also now added to the project. And you'll notice here that it tells me that I have push and pull access to this repository. What this means is that I have connected actually my GitHub account to Renku. So I can see here under my integrations that I've connected github.com as one of my repository providers. And we have a number of other, as you can see here, many GitLabs already configured on renkulab.io. But if you have an additional source of code that you would like to connect, we have a handy link down here where you can click and send us an email with that request. So let us know if there is a particular GitLab instance or some other repository provider that you would like to use. But so for now, I have my code in here. And what this means is actually that Renku will manage all access to this repository for me. So when I actually finally start a session, in here, the rights that I have to the repository will automatically be put into the session, so I can just work with it as I normally would. Now, to finally use the data and to run the code on the data, I need some sort of compute environment. So we have a few options here. You have the option to create a global environment, which is basically some pre-canned environments that we have added here. You can create one from code, or you can provide an existing Docker image that you've created somewhere else. So adding a global environment is super easy. You just literally click this button and then you have to select what kind of resources you want. With the default resource pool, so if you're using the public part of Renku Lab, you only have access to the default pool. But if you are a member of a group that has, for example, larger resources available through Renku Lab, you can also select those here. Here is an example of the resource pool that we have set up for the Swiss Data Science Center. But this is a small thing, so I'm just going to pick something reasonably small, add the session launcher, and now it's here for me, ready to go. But I want to show you just quickly also the create from code launcher, because that is actually one that is very interesting because it allows you to keep your environment linked to your code repository. So in my repository, I do have this requirements file, which has some packages inside. And what I can do here is when I create a session launcher, I can create one from code. And I have a few options here. So I can select, if I had multiple repositories, I could choose which repository I want to use. I can choose which language. For now, Python is the only option, but we are also working on providing support for R in RStudio. And then which interface I want. So in this case, I can choose between VS Codium and JupyterLab. We'll go for JupyterLab because we have Jupyter notebooks in this project. And again, I have to select the type of resources that I want to use. And that's it. Now, basically, what Renku is doing behind the scenes is it took my repository, it's inspecting what's inside, it's going to find the requirements file and create a Docker image that will have all the packages that I have specified there in the requirements file, plus a Jupyter interface. Now, this takes a few minutes, so I've actually set up beforehand another project with the same content, so I'll just go there where I already have these sessions running to show you what's inside. So this is exactly the same thing here that I just launched, but I started it before the demo. So when I go inside the session, we'll see the Jupyter interface. And indeed, I have here the code repository, and I have the data that was mounted from this data connector that we found inside the platform. And then what I can do, obviously, is I can go in here and start to run this notebook, which has now all of the required libraries and everything pre-installed, and it can just go in there and go with it. So you can treat this as basically kind of your own workspace. You can share this workspace with another colleague. So if I were to, this is a private project, so if I wanted somebody else to have access to it, I could add them here as a project member, and they would then also be able to use exactly the same setup. Now, just for the purposes of this demo, I also added a second type of environment here, because this is something that users very much like to do, especially when there's kind of different types of stakeholders in a project. And that's to add actually a dashboard that also potentially uses the same resources from the project, but it's just, instead of actually running code, you just want to present a dashboard. And this is very easily done. In this example, I added just a simple Streamlit demo, and it works exactly like you would expect for a Streamlit dashboard. Once it's running, you just see the dashboard in the project. And it's a really nice way to then have like a public demonstration of what's happening in your research project, for example. So that's the first part of that I wanted to show, which is how to set up kind of a really basic data science project. And now I want to kind of maybe go one level higher and show what really we envision Renku to be especially useful for, and that is collaboration. So when multiple people really need to work together. And for that, I'll use an example of a project that is that we're currently developing with our colleagues from the NCCR microbiomes. And this is just all for currently still in development, but I think it's a good illustrator of the potential here. So the setup here is that we have a collaborative, basically a group collaborating together from multiple institutions, and they have data spread across file shares in different places. There's firewalls in between, etc. And so it's been very difficult to get this collaboration to actually exchange efficiently their data. So what we've done from our side is that we've worked with the IT teams from both institutions to give Renku access to these file shares, and then created the data connectors inside Renku Lab. So now essentially all these researchers have to do is basically what I showed you before, which is to come here, copy paste this identifier, and boom, they're up and running in their project with this data connector. This one happens to be coming from EPFL, and these other two are from UNIL. So we really have kind of a diverse set of data, a diverse set of researchers. In addition, what we have here for this particular case is we have a code repository that was used for a paper that was published from this consortium, including in this project then a data set that is added directly from Zenodo. So this is a published data set that was done by this group, and it's coming directly from Zenodo. And all we had to do here was to copy paste this DOI into the data connector dialog here, and the data is then immediately made available for us. So this is here. You have also a link then back to the original Zenodo dataset. So in this case, also I've already started the session to save some time, but then basically what you see in here is that we've got the Zenodo dataset, we have the data from EPFL, we have the data from UNIL, we have the code repository. So everything, all these resources that different people from the project have provided for the collaboration are all brought together under one roof in this interactive work environment on Renku. So we really hope that this can facilitate sort of breaking down some of these institutional barriers as well. And I don't know if you will show this later, maybe not, but we're working on a completely revamped version of this page that will make all of these resources much easier to find and much more understandable. So this is just considered as sort of a preview, and a better version of this is coming shortly. But already all of the kind of plumbing to get access to data from different places, this is already all in place. And if you are in an institution where you know that you have kind of a regulated or a protected data source, let us know, and we can hopefully work with your IT team to make that available through Renku Lab. Now, finally, the last thing I wanted to show was an example of this is a really common use case for Renku Lab at the moment, and that is for teaching, or actually events, workshops, hackathons, and so on. And here is actually this is a course happening as we speak on Renku Lab from University of Fribourg, and it's a really nice example of how this can be done. So the idea here is that the instructor does basically all the hard work ahead of time of all the setup, of all the library installations, etc., of making sure that data is available. And when the students come, they can simply reuse this project and are up and running for their coursework. You can kind of transfer the same model to having a hackathon or some sort of training event, maybe a one-day training or whatever. It doesn't have to be a semester course. But in this case, you'll notice right away that there's something different here. This project has been marked by the instructor as a template. And in order to then use it for myself, I can first copy the project. And here, there's also some documentation how to do this and how then the users, the students, the course participants, should then work with this project. The idea is that some of the data is already provided by the instructor, but then the students are expected to add their own, for example, switch drive folder or polybox folder to basically keep their own results in. And again, here, there's also a code repository already attached where now, since I'm not the owner of this repository, I only have full access to it. And what I can do here now is I can copy this project. It will be brought into my namespace. So I will be able to work with this now as fully my own. And the first thing that I can do here is I've already configured this, but I have a polybox folder where that I can then use in this for this purpose. So I've created this polybox folder, created a shared link, and made a data connector with this. And now I can use this polybox folder wherever I want inside Renku Lab, but in this case, this was made specifically for this course. So here again, I can simply add it in. And of course, this is now my own data connector, right? It's private. My project is private. Nobody can see this, even though I've copied it from the instructor's template. And I'm now free to launch any of these environments. For example, here's one that the instructor has already configured with all of the R packages that are required in there for actually working on the course material. So this is, if I was a student here, I would come into class and then simply click launch here and be up and running in a few minutes. So this is a really efficient way to get courses with complex requirements off the ground. And of course, if you have special compute requirements, we can also create a resource pool for the course, and then the students will have access to those resources again through selecting a specialized resource class here for their sessions. So I think I will stop there unless you think I should cover something else, or if there's any questions online at this moment while I have the demo up. There's a question from Stan. So we'll unmute you, Stan, and you can ask your question. We don't hear you yet. Can you unmute? There we go. No, we still can't hear you. Do we have our volume up? Yeah, we can hear you, Stan. So maybe if you can potentially type the question. All right, so I think we will move on, but Stan, please type your question. We'll get there it is. Lineage capabilities. Right, so in Renku 2, basically the quick answer is that we are not focusing at the moment on tracking lineage like we were in the old Renku. Part of the reason is that we essentially, while working with a number of different user groups over the past several years with the previous iteration of Renku, we found that essentially the basic missing piece that people were facing was this lack of ability to connect resources across institutional boundaries, or basically just to bring in different types of resources together. So for the time being, we put a pause on the lineage tracking. What we have in mind for this innovation is that we will provide a more flexible system that is not a kind of a custom-made workflow system. in the future where you'd be able to use kind of a workflow system of your choice, and we will provide some capability through a command line interface, again, to track some of that data usage. But for now, that has not been done yet. Right. So the next question is thank you, Rodrigo. Where are the sessions running from? So currently our platform is running on Switch infrastructure in Switzerland. And there is a sort of a queuing system, but the compute nodes are on the Switch infrastructure here in the data center in Zurich. Do you want to add something to that?
I will get to this in just a moment, but integrating with other compute infrastructure is one of the biggest focuses for us for the next 6 to 12 months. So there'll be much more coming here in the future.
The next question we have is, will you also support other Python environments besides the requirements file? Yes, so we are, under the hood, we're using a build pack system, and we've been asked about UV before, but unfortunately UV is not yet supported. What is supported is pips or requirements, Conda, and I believe poetry is also supported for the time being. But yeah, we're aware that other people want to use something like the UV package manager, and that is something that's in the works. And again about the old Renku. So yeah, we will get to that, I think, in a second, about the fate of the legacy Renku. So I will hold off on that for the moment.
Yeah, I can see there's 2 questions from Stan both about the Renku legacy, which we will answer in a little bit.
All right, so if there's nothing else on the demo part, and by the way, if you would like to ask a question through your microphone, you can just raise a hand and we'll allow you to unmute. But also typing is fine. We can also answer these live. All right, so I'll stop my share and then you can take back over, Laura. There's a raised hand here. Yeah.
You should be able to speak.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, thanks for the demo. I was just wondering about the nature of the data that you can connect to. So is it basically it has to be completely open, or does Renku give you like different restrictions or permissions that you can actually embed?
That's a great question. Yeah.
Great question. In fact, no, it doesn't have to be open at all. Let me see if I can find an example here. Actually, this one is a good example. So this is a private data folder that I've created. It happens to be in Polybox, but I did add a password to it. So the first time I used this data connector, Renku asked me for my credentials and I entered the password. And then after that, we saved them for convenience so that anytime that you use the same data connector, you can use it. We just have your credentials already. But the same applies for, let's say, S3 buckets or SFTP servers or anything else. You can use credentialed access to those resources anytime. The credentials here are saved per user. So now I put my credentials in here. If I wanted to share this with somebody, I would also have to tell them or give them the credential and they would enter it for themselves. You can't share the data connector together with the credentials. And so in that way, we keep this access control really separate. Renku just takes whatever the user gives us and brokers access to that resource. And that's all based on users' individual access.
Okay, I was just wondering, like, for example, if you have a CC BY license, like share alike or not for commercial use, basically you cannot have these licenses accepted within Renku, right?
So that is actually the user's responsibility to make sure that the content that they're sharing is properly licensed and that the way that they're sharing it abides by the license. That is not something that we monitor or check or we can't actually monitor and check for those things. So that is up to the user to make sure that they're including the license where necessary and that they're following the license terms.
Okay, thanks.
We have another question about whether it's possible to link the data sources to GitLab CI/CD. Do you think you understand what this question means?
Not fully. I'm not sure what you mean by data source from GitLab CI.
Rodrigo, would you like to speak to clarify your question? Find you in the list in.
Yeah, I just did it.
Okay.
There. Yeah, so you can unmute Rodrigo and let us know. Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it was a kind of a generic question, because there are tools like CML, DVC that allow you to do like a continuous testing of models on GitLab CI, and for that normally you give it access to a kind of remote data source. So I was wondering, I mean, just in general, if there's some pipeline thought up for connecting the data sources from Renku to stuff that can be run on CI/CD.
So, I mean, your CI/CD pipeline, if you push changes to your code repository that had the CI/CD pipeline in it, that would still run then wherever it is running now, right? And you could actually connect the same data source that you have your CI/CD pipeline accessing. You could probably connect the same data source to Renku. Presumably that's some sort of S3 bucket or something where you're saving your models. So I think.
But if there was a data source that somebody shared with me on Renku and I didn't create it, then we probably need like an extra forwarding from Renku to some other.
So we are connecting directly to the source. So if you give us like for example, an AWS S3 bucket location, like we just connect directly there, and you wouldn't have to go through Renku to get access to that. You would simply access that directly from your CI/CD pipeline.
So if I get access to some data source, the data source from Renku, I can also see where it's coming from. So I could connect externally.
Pull up the data. Yes. While Rogue is pulling it back up, you'll be able to see in any Renku data connector, you'll be able to see the configuration for how to access that data connector, which that information can be used in any other system. I saw. Oh wait, it went away. But I think Rodrigo had a question about what's the technology under the hood. The technology under the hood that's connecting all of these data connectors into the session is arclone. So that can also be used outside of Renku to connect to the same exact data sources.
But we don't. We don't have the option to export the configs at the moment.
No, but you could look at this and create a similar config.
Yeah, but we have virtual providers, and so we need to give translation for the.
True. Yeah. Yeah, we could make that more easier to use, but here essentially you can see here where this S3 bucket is coming from, and you could use this information to connect to just the same.
Yeah,
Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
Should we move on? We're at half an hour.
Yeah, okay. So
One more.
should we do this one or
Um,
session secrets?
sure. Yeah. Do you want to take it?
I don't have a.
You mean actually to show it?
The talk track.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So the next question is, how would you connect to something like a Postgres database from a Renku session? And there we actually recommend a little bit of a different approach, and that's something that we call in Renku session secrets. So what Rock is showing here, you can create any kind of confidential information, a token or a secret that you want to be saved as part of your Renku project and made available to you in your session. So here, for example, you can save the Postgres login credentials for the database you want to connect to. Once you save this information into the project, it will be in the session represented as a file that you can reference via code. And so you can consume that secret, that credential, and use it in your database connection library and be on your merry way. An added benefit of doing it this way is that it's not only saving, it's structured so that the secrets are structured the same way for every member. So once you create what's referred to here as a session secret slot, every member of the project is informed that this specific secret is expected for the session and will be prompted to enter their own credentials for however you name it, like the Postgres login, and it will function the same for different people using the same Renku project. Okay, so I'm gonna carry on with the remainder of the presentation. Do please keep the questions coming. Thank you, Emmanuel. Okay, so to wrap up this first and biggest portion of this presentation, all about what is 2.0 in the introduction, I just want to touch on what are the three main use cases that folks are already using Renku 2.0 for. The first of course, is research, using Renku as a single platform where you can connect all of the components of your project in one place, and it really helps collaborate across specialty differences and technical differences in technical level. A second use case, as Rogue highlighted in the demo with the template project, is courses. So this is really great for getting students set up very quickly and getting straight into diving into the material and not having to spend a bunch of time figuring out how to get a set of packages installed just to get started on their coursework. And similarly, events like hackathons or workshops, Renku is loved by workshop organizers, again, as a way to help the participants who are in kind of a time-sensitive situation where they only have like an hour or a couple hours to work on a project, to make sure that valuable time isn't lost to just getting set up and oriented. They can be up and running really, really quickly on Renku once the organizers put the initial project in place. Speaking of connecting people, if you are interested in meeting and exchanging with other Renku users, we would love to have you at our annual Renku meeting, which is happening in just a few weeks later this month. The Renku users meeting is a great place to connect with like-minded individuals who are really passionate about collaboration in research and science and teaching. You can attend both in person, the meeting is in Bern, or online if that suits your schedule better. So you can find the registration link for that here. We'll be sending out these slides. You can also find it on all over the place on our blog and our community portal, which I'll be advertising in a little bit. All right, so that concludes the first and largest portion of this presentation, going over what is Renku 2.0 all about. So next I'm going to switch gears to what lies ahead, both for Renku 2.0 and also for what we are going forward referring to as Renku Legacy. So I want to share the focus areas for our next 6 to 12 months or so, and what we have planned. So as I think came up in one of the Q&A questions, a huge focus for us for the short next future is connecting with external compute. So at the moment, all Renku sessions run on our compute infrastructure that we manage. It's on Switch. But to really round out this puzzle that we have literally on the screen of connecting code and data and compute, we want to build integrations with other compute systems. We know that other people have already committed to other compute systems or need bigger resources on other compute systems. So here we are looking at building integrations with things such as public cloud infrastructure and also HPC. If this is something you're interested in, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and get involved there. We also, in the coming months and year, are focusing on building out even more integration with data repositories. As you saw a little beginning of that, integrating with data repositories like Zenodo and Dataverse. And we have on our roadmap to expand that to other data repositories, especially those in the ETH domain for those of you in Switzerland. And finally, in terms of collaboration, we're looking forward to really rounding out our collaboration features, especially around helping groups of people organize, share, and showcase group resources. So we're looking to support more complex use cases, for example, supporting a lab manager or PI and having a good overview of all of the projects happening in their group. Or, for example, creating a showcase of all of the output, an interactive showcase of all of the output of a collaboration. This is actually work that we are already started and will be coming in just a couple of months. Speaking of which, if you're interested to learn more about what's on the horizon, we publish all the design documents for our short-term roadmap online. It's bookmarked here once you receive the slides. And you can check out what we have coming down the pipeline. And please do write us if you have any comments or feedback on what you find there. Okay. And then last but not least, in order to make space for all of these new features, we need to do some housekeeping and to keep a tightly running ship. And this means sunsetting the former version of Renku, which we're referring to going forward as Renku Legacy. So for this moment, I'm going to give a high-level overview of what this transition will look like, including what are the specific steps you need to do to complete this transition. You don't need to memorize what we share here. Everything is laid out in detail on our blog, which, as you might guess by now, is linked from the slides in just a moment. So you can digest at your own pace, as well as it includes already the guides you need to do these transition steps. So what does the sunsetting of Renku Legacy mean? There are two main components. The first is sunsetting Renku Legacy. This means something we're going to be doing this coming fall in October. This means when we sunset Renku Legacy, that all projects that have been migrated from Renku Legacy to Renku 2.0, those links will automatically redirect to the 2.0 version, and the Renku Legacy version will no longer be accessible. To make this easy, we've built migration tools. You can find them on the dashboard and on legacy project pages. For the majority of projects, it's as simple as 3 clicks to migrate, your Renku Legacy project, into 2.0 form. It pulls all the same components together. The second major component of the sunsetting process is shutting down the Renku Lab GitLab. So the Renku 2.0 is no longer tied to the GitLab instance that lives inside Renku Lab. You can connect Renku 2.0 projects with pretty much any Git provider that you need to, whether it's another GitLab or GitHub. And we've already provided in the blog post a transition guide for migrating Git repositories. So though this might sound like a really big change, we do see it as a win-win for both you and us. For you, it makes your Git repositories more resilient to be hosted on a platform that doesn't rely on us. And then second, you may not be aware, but hosting and maintaining a GitLab instance is quite a lot of work. And shutting down the GitLab instance will enable us to refocus the person power that goes into that to things that are really more aligned with our key focus areas. For example, the integrations with external compute. So To make this transition as painless as we can, we will be breaking down the transition into some gradual steps to help people prevent from getting caught by surprise. So in just next month, we're going to be disabling the project creation in Renku Legacy, and then shortly after disabling sessions in preparation for the entire legacy platform for being turned off. Similarly, for the GitLab shutting down, we'll start doing GitLab brownouts, which means short temporary disabling of the platform, the GitLab instance, starting shortly in advance of the official shutdown. I just want to reiterate, you can find all the details of the transition plan in this blog post, as well as both a migration guides for migrating your Renku legacy projects, and also migrating GitLab repositories. So translating that next into 3 specific things you need to do to complete this transition. The first is to migrate your Renku legacy projects by October. In particular, if you are an instructor who will be running courses on Renku in this fall, make sure to transition those course materials to Renku 2.0 off of Legacy before the fall semester start. And then finally, by the end of the year, migrating your code repositories to an external provider. This may be easy kind of mentally to just do at the same time as when you migrate your project, but you technically have all the way through the end of the year to do so. And we're also here to support you along the way. So if you have any questions with more complex projects where the built-in migration tools don't quite do the trick, please don't hesitate to reach out to us for support. Okay, so just to wrap up, this is my last slide, and then we'll open up to questions. So just to wrap up and to close, I want to give a huge thank you to our community who's been with us along this journey. It's been an incredible 18 months, bringing the vision of Renku 2.0 to life. To celebrate, our designer created this really cool graphic. It depicts each of our major releases, which we name after mountain peaks and the major features that have gone into building Renku 2.0. So I want to specifically give a huge thank out to everyone who's participated in our user research sessions. Thank you to our first beta testers who, when we opened the closed beta just a year ago, were clicking around and giving us their feedback. Thank you to the folks who tried out the early access release back in starting this winter. Thank you also to the instructors and the event organizers who trusted us with your first courses and hackathons already that have been running on Renku 2.0. Thank you to our grant collaborators and to those whom we have active collaborations with now. All of you, your engagement and feedback have shaped what Renku 2.0 is today. I also want to give a huge shout out to our contributors at EDAP and Nexus for having directly helped in bringing this project to life. And finally, a huge thanks to our home at the Swiss Data Science Center for making this entire endeavor possible. So we have a lot more in vision for the future, and I look forward to what is next on our journey. With that, I want to open up back up to questions, which, as again, you can either post in the Q&A or raise your hand. And we'll start with Stan, who's been patiently has his hand up for a minute or so now. So Stan, do you want to try talking again? Otherwise, type in the Q&A. If you're talking, we still cannot hear you.
Yep, still nothing. I'm assuming Stan is typing his question, so if anybody else has a question, go ahead.
Want to take this one, Mark?
Sure. So, as I mentioned in the answer to one of the other questions on this topic, so for Renku 1, the lineage you have in your project is still there. I mean, it's basically baked into the Git repository, and you can always use the existing Renku CLI to work with that lineage or use that lineage. That said, I don't know if others saw my answer to the other question on this. We will likely not maintain that package anymore past the end of this year when we sunset the Renku legacy component. So that's part of the that's one of the components that is not going to be carried forward.
Well, to put that in slightly different terms, there's the Renku legacy platform, and then there's the Renku Python package. The platform we will be turning off this fall. The package we will no longer be supporting, but that's not going anywhere. So you can technically continue to use it.
So the next question is if it's only for students and researchers, or can it be also used by early stage startups? Yeah, great question. Thanks a lot for that. It can be used by the private sector. We ask in that case that you approach us and get a service agreement with us for commercial use. So if you would like to use it for a startup, please get in touch and we can discuss that. And the next one is, now that Renku is more interoperable, we also expect interoperability of hosting Renku using on-premise infrastructure. Yeah, so in fact, you can already run your own instance of Renku if you would like. We are making some changes this summer to make that even easier. However, what Laura referred to earlier with plugging in external compute resources, we actually are building this primarily for the case where you may have on-premise infrastructure that you want to use for compute, but you don't want to run the entire service. So you could actually run a small subset of the services, which is much cheaper to do and much easier to maintain, and just connect those resources to Renku.io, which we operate and we guarantee that is up and running and so on. And that is a much easier way to integrate on-premise infrastructure and give people this sort of more easy to use interface to those access to those resources. Any other questions? If not, I think we can probably wrap up. So thank you all again for joining. Yeah, so Stan, please get in touch with us, and we can help out with the migration if needed. Yeah, and yes, so Champak, we are aiming to make running the whole platform less complicated. That's also part of the interest in sunsetting some of the old components which make it more difficult, especially the connection to GitLab. So with that gone, it's much easier to actually run the services that you need. But if you have specific, if you have something specific in mind, let us know and we can chat about that. Yeah, so with that, we'll close the Q&A, and if there's any questions outstanding, feel free to contact us. And again, thanks everybody for joining. And we look forward to hearing feedback. If you start using Renku, the new version of Renku, please get in touch if you have questions or if you have feature ideas. We're always happy to hear about those as well. Thanks a lot, and we will be distributing the slides, I think, in a follow-up email to everybody who registered for the webinar.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks
Bye.
all.